Welcome to special business meeting for Monday, September 14th, 2020. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
That's all right. It's fine, Joe. You're fine. Roll call, please.
Okay. Councilman Scarinti,
Present.
Councilwoman Restinetti,
Present.
Councilwoman Riley,
Present.
Councilwoman Friedman,
Present.
Councilman Burns,
Present.
Councilman Strawn,
Present.
President Scan.
Present.
That's all 7 here.
Okay, let's get right into it. Introductory resolution 20-94, considered municipal and public affairs. Councilwoman Restinetti, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. I stand and ask for unanimous consideration for introductory resolution 20-94. A resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into an extension agreement with the Binghamton City School District for school resource officers at the high school and middle schools for 2020-2021.
Second.
All right, we had some discussion about this last week. Everybody is welcome to speak again. If you have some new thoughts or something else you want to say about this, please go ahead and do so now. Hearing no one will.
Oh, Mr. Pratt, sorry, I had my hand raised. May I speak, Councilwoman Friedman?
Sure, Councilwoman, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. I pulled some statistics from a report that came out that was published by the American Civil Liberties Union, the ACLU, that were troubling. And according to this report, which takes data from the federal CRDC data, schools that have police officers in them arrest students at a rate that is 3.5 times higher than schools without police. They nationally arrest 2 students for every 10,000, and that's a rate that's almost 4 times higher than schools without police. We also see across almost all metrics that students who have disabilities and Black students and Native American students are also disproportionately arrested in these schools with police officers, both at a rate of 3 times higher. So students with disabilities are arrested at a rate that's 3 times higher than students without disabilities. And Black students are also arrested at a rate that is 3 times higher than their white counterparts. And we also see that schools that have police officers tend to arrest students for things that I think most of us would consider regular adolescent behavior, things like swearing, which I'm not condoning swearing, but I don't think that that necessitates an arrest and the creation of a criminal record for a student. So it just, I think that our students deserve better than being at a disproportionate, where we're creating a situation where they're at a disproportionate chance of being arrested and criminalized for things that previously were not. That is worrisome to me, and I don't think that that is how we can create a safe learning environment for our students. And I did say before, this is nothing against individual SROs. I have worked with some of them professionally, and they're absolutely wonderful. But I don't think that this is the way that we need to get that kind of support and relationship building to our students. We can maybe use that funding to get more social workers or counselors or mental health professionals or any number of other qualified professionals in the schools that will allow for our students to feel more safe and supported and less likely to be arrested for typical adolescent behavior. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Other comments?
Mr. President?
Yes.
Can
Councilwoman
you,
President.
yeah, can you guys hear me okay? Yeah, I just wanted to just say a couple things. I don't want to, just state everything that I brought up last week regarding, this particular topic and why I'm in support. But, and I want to say, thank you to Councilwoman Riley for looking into this and doing some of the research. But I did want to say that I guess I'm just wondering the reports and the data that you have shared with us, I'm wondering from which schools, what city? Does this include Binghamton, New York by any chance? After our meeting last week, actually the next day I called the Binghamton High School, the principal there. I had a bit of a conversation regarding his experience. So he was the only one I hadn't talked to really. And my understanding, again, I was not surprised. He stated that they could not possibly do the work that they do without their resource officers. I talked to him about criminalizing students and what does that look like and why are folks thinking this, and just kind of try to pick his brain and see what his thoughts were. And basically what he said to me was that in the years that he's been here, he can maybe count on one hand, maybe twice. He could think of 2 times, I think, when students were arrested. If anything, what he shared with me was because of the type of community that we are and the relationship the students have with resource officer, is it Williams, I want to say his last name is, there have been so many times when, because of his engagement, his being able to intervene in a situation that was kind of volatile, students who he had developed relationships with, because of that, they ended up not calling the police or 911 or whoever they would have called if he wasn't there. And so actually ended up, so students were not arrested. And the situation was sort of diffused, and social workers got involved, and counselors and whatever. So although I appreciate the information that you shared, I have heard loud and clear from families, students, and principals and superintendents that this is a much needed service. They want those officers there. For me to completely sort of disregard what they're asking us for is really, it would be an indication of a disconnect that we, as myself, as a council person, we have with our particular community and our community's needs. And I think you're right, Councilwoman Friedman, that our students do deserve better. They do deserve for us to look at them for the unique group that they are in this unique community. We're not New York, we're not Miami, we're not Chicago, we're not whatever, we are Binghamton, New York. And so, I get it. There's some opposition to all this, and I'm very happy to be able to have these kinds of conversations. But in the end, I feel that I know that I will support what the experts are asking me as their councilwoman to support. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Other comments, please?
Yes, Council President, this is Councilwoman Riley.
Go ahead, Councilwoman.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I'd just like to highlight, thank you, Councilwoman Rosanity. That was actually Councilwoman Friedman that spoke before you. You mentioned Councilwoman Riley with the data, and that was not me.
Yeah,
so,
sorry.
I would like to highlight, though, yes, it is a novel. There was data cited that was robust in nature, but we do have data from Binghamton as well, looking at the police reports over several years. And yes, I've had conversations, as I alluded to last week, both with the principals and the superintendent. And yes, we do have some great SROs in the building, and we cannot confuse the person from the position. Again, you can have a great professor, and the data can show that professors at large are great, but if you have one that does not do well, then and the position, you have to separate. And I just want to highlight that to anyone that may be listening. I know I mentioned it before. I'm a great fan. Everyone always brings up Officer Williams, maybe because he's the SRO that is of a color. But there are other great SROs also. We do love Officer Williams. We also loved Officer Wood. So I just want everyone to also realize, as I highlighted before, that the most proactive in the community will reach out. We also have to serve those that don't reach out to us, and those are often the ones that have been affected by the systems. And the ones that have been affected are the ones that, again, we are the voice for as well. So I just want everyone to think about that, and I appreciate all the feedback provided both from the community, from the administrators, from the police officers actually as well. But we do have a lot of conversation that needs to happen in this community based upon the data that was received from this community as well. Thank you.
Other comments, please? All right, we'll put this up for a vote now.
Oh, sorry, this is Councilwoman Freeman. I was raising my hand. If you want, I can sit.
No, I'm sorry, go ahead, I didn't see you, go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Mr. President. Thank you for my colleagues who spoke before me. And I did want to echo what Councilwoman Ressanetti said, is that I absolutely agree with you in terms of the students need someone in that building that they can trust. And I don't mean that came out, I don't mean to say that there's no one there, but they, like you were saying, that there are situations where, for example, there is someone who has a relationship with that student who is able to de-escalate the situation, who's maybe better able to ascertain what's going on. And then my response to that would be that why does that person have to be someone who is armed and in a law enforcement uniform? Like, why do we have to have that source of support and understanding and relationship be someone who is, likely there to, to be there in a criminal situation, right? Why can't we have that exact support that you were just talking about, that the teachers and the administrators and the students really need, in the form of maybe a counselor, or someone who's not carrying a firearm? I just worry that the message that we're sending, that okay, this is the person, and again, it's nothing against the individual officers. I think they are wonderful, and they do elect to be in that position. They apply to be there, so they care about the students. But why in the contract are we making it so they look like the law enforcement officers that people are encountering on the street, that are then, putting them or their families in jail, for example? That's what doesn't sit right with me, is that we're asking these students to get that relationship and support from someone who's carrying a firearm in the school. I think we can offer that exact same relationship and support from somebody who is not a law enforcement officer.
Mr. President, can I just say one more thing?
Sure, Councilwoman, go ahead.
Yeah, so thank you. I guess the way I look at it is, like I mentioned last week, and again, I don't want to, kind of like beat this to death, it is important that we bring all sort of disciplines together to give the best that we can to our students. I don't believe in the all or nothing kind of solution. Social workers have a purpose, counselors have a purpose, police officers have, their purpose, their thing to do within the schools. And also, if we live in, I guess, an ideal world, we will not have to have armed officers anywhere. My recollection is, and I could be wrong, but I think at least a couple of the principals said that, the armed officers came into the schools after Columbine. And although right now, because of everything that's going on in the world, it has sort of fallen to the side, like the concerns for that, I heard loud and clear the concerns of the worry that Principal Richmond, Kevin from Binghamton High School has regarding that still to this day. And so, that's just another thing that I wanted to add. Oh, and one more thing, and then I will stop. I would absolutely love to see those that do have data that in regards as it pertains to Binghamton schools and the way they've criminalized students or their, whatever you want to call it. I would love to see that data that you guys just spoke about presented maybe to the schools and have those administrators respond to that, because we can kind of throw those things out there, and I think it is unfair if they don't have an opportunity to respond to something like that. So that's that. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Other comments, please?
Mr. President,
Yes.
I just want to mention, I mean, my understanding is maybe I think too simplistically on some of this stuff, but I have insurance on my house, but I hope it doesn't burn down. They might help fulfill little things in the school, but that's not really what they're there for. They're not there for day-to-day discipline or anything else. So maybe I'm thinking about this wrongly. They're there if something really happens, an active shooter or anything like that. And I would hate to see if that was the case, if heaven forbid something happened and we did something adverse when they're asking us to do this without any alternative in place. That would be horrifying to me. Maybe school does it a little differently, but I know the officer at East Middle School, they don't do day-to-day stuff. They don't do day-to-day discipline. So I'm not sure where all these other things are coming from. That's not what they do. It's not what he does. I know that. He's there just in case something really happens that they need him in a horrific situation. That's what they're really there for. Maybe I'm underthinking this, but without any alternative to what would happen if that happened, I wouldn't be able to live with myself. So I just wanted to mention that.
Thank you, Councilman. Other comments, please? Councilman Burns.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. As I said, by the way, I always face this way because the microphone's over here, so I end up with my back to those folks. But if I face that way, they wouldn't be able to hear me. I don't think. Anyway, so I'm looking forward to having a conversation with Board of Education and with the Chancellor of the schools, and having conversations with people that have have doctorates and masters, and I know my daughter she's got 2 masters to become a principal, and her masters are in education, and she's a principal, and she's all in favor of SROs. And so I would like to go with all this data to these professionals that are asking us for help, and go over it with them. And that's how I feel about that. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments, please?
Call a question, Mr. President.
Question McCall. Grace?
Councilman Scaringi,
Aye.
Councilwoman Restinetti,
Aye.
Councilwoman Riley,
Nay.
Councilwoman Friedman,
Nay.
Councilman Burns,
Aye.
Councilman Strawn,
Aye.
President Scanlon.
Aye.
That's 5 ayes, 2 nays, Riley and Friedman.
Okay, introductory ordinance 20-82, considered the finance, Councilman Strawn.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask council for unanimous consideration of introductory ordinance 20-82, an ordinance to amend permanent ordinance 020-56 to clarify the scope of donations to the R Space reconstruction project.
Second.
Second.
Comments?
Call a question, Mr. President.
Question McCall?
Councilman Scaringi,
Aye.
Councilwoman Restinetti,
Aye.
Councilwoman Riley,
Aye.
Councilwoman Friedman,
Aye.
Councilman Burns,
Aye.
Councilman Strawn,
Aye.
President Scanlon.
Aye.
It's 7 ayes, 0 nays.
All right, one last thing before we adjourn the meeting. I sent out email and if you have a question on sewer treatment plant, we're gonna have a vote on Wednesday on this. So if you have a question that needs to be answered, I think they need time, either Charles Pearsall or Elliot need time to field your questions in case they need time. So if you want your question answered, I suggest you get it to the clerk by tomorrow. So they'll have time to answer you. And then we will have an educated vote on Wednesday at the budget meeting. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We're adjourned.